Okay, so first, I'm not saying this person's lying. This is their experience, but I'm saying I'm warning developers of this experience and have this understanding. Now, there's a fine end to this, but let's be clear about this. That's a self-selected group coming to your events about VR. When we first were coming out with VR with the Vive, before people had the experience of modern VR, right? There's a bunch of studies from like 2005 and stuff. Oh my God, what were they? Everyone got sick then. All right, but like back when we were first showing it and people didn't have any idea what to expect, we saw all across college campuses people getting sick, just like the regular mix of people. It doesn't make a difference. But now if you come to a VR event, do you think the people who get sick are going to come to the VR event? No, they're not. They know, or they know to close their eyes. I used to joke when I had to demo games, I started just doing it with one eye. But this is anecdotal evidence. What you want to do is go look at research. And so I think the most recent research I saw is 2023 influence of normal aging in multisensory data diffusion on cyber sickness and postural adaptation to immersive virtual reality. That is a mouthful. But it's an age test, right? And they see no connection, but they see one connection. That's your postural adaptation. So now this is the thing: as you get older, they suggest you try to do, and that is close your eyes and stand on one foot. And how long can you stand? And keeping that built up, some of it's practice, but keeping that built up is a healthy thing for you. First of all, because just falling over when you get older is bad, but it also is just a practice, right? And it is a sign of health in some part of your body. That is the connection if you get sick or not, is that ability to do that. Some people can't do that when they're young. Some people can't do that like forever. Some people do it super late in their life, right? It's fine. We're all different, right? And there's also studies on if it's sex dependent. That's widely anecdotal, and they're not really sure. And is it only during certain times of the month? Like, there's a whole bunch of studies there, and all of them are like, man, we need to research this more. At least I couldn't find any that had it. But you want to be careful about this. But equally, it's fine to say this because you are making your game. If you're making that kind of game, you're making your game for the people who get sick, that other people would get sick playing what they play, right? And that's fine. But like, if you're like, hey, none of my friends get sick playing VR, man, shit, you're just an old man. Well, I mean, Dave doesn't play VR with us. He likes baseball instead. Yeah, because Dave gets sick. Okay? Again, study after study shows that age is not the dependent factor on if people get sick or not in VR. Now, it is that there's a lot of people who are willing to suffer through things to get into it, and then there's the whole VR legs thing. And here's the deal: if you could handle VR, you will handle VR. If you can't handle VR, there's no amount of suffering through it that's going to get you to the other side of it, right? And that's where I still say VR legs isn't a real thing. And I know they were for you because you aren't susceptible to it, right? And again, you can go yell at me and you can call me stupid because in these videos, when I say these kind of things, I always get everybody mad. But you can go look at a bunch of studies, and happy to share a study with me that counters this. But again and again, there's just a large part of the population that gets sick. So here's the deal: don't make a game for them. If you're making your game, and don't target them, they're not going to want. You're not going to win them over. You're not going to be like, they're like, finally, right? Because they already have that. They have Beat Saber. They've got Pistol Whip that moves you and doesn't make me sick, right? But like, there's a whole bunch of stuff they can play if they want to play VR, but they're not going to play VR because they're limited in what they can play. And so you should make the thing that you want to make. And again, that's what I was saying of why I'm not a dev there. And I respect the devs who are there, but be really clear about this, right? Like, Sony cut out because they weren't selling enough units and selling enough copies. For perspective, while I don't know the numbers of the VR units, I don't think I've ever been public about that. I do know the number of Move they sold, which was like between like 15 and 17 million of Move controllers. This is back in the day. I ignore when they reintroduced them with VR. But that 17 million wasn't enough for them to keep making those Move controllers because they're like, that's not big enough of our market. So if you were making all Move games, you got bit by that, right? And so for VR, it's just the same kind of thing, because even in the latest earnings call and interviews that Mark Zuckerberg's doing, he's distancing himself from VR and saying, oh no, this is all actually about AI. Of course, what a swarmy little bastard. But also, what a creepy looking dude lately. Oh man, I don't normally call people out on their looks, but he's purposely doing some weird stuff. All right, but I digress. And so it's fine, but be aware. There may be a point where what happens if Facebook removes their money out of the equation? What if Facebook decides AR is what they want to go after, not VR, right? These are all things you have to, as you're building things, have an understanding of and thinking about. And so, again, I'm not saying this person's wrong, but I'm saying that's anecdotal evidence. The actual numbers suggest this person is wrong, but their life experience isn't wrong. Does that make sense? And so again, I know you don't get sick, your friends don't get sick, nobody gets sick. VR is the greatest thing ever, and nobody's ever gotten sick except for all those people who have. And again, there's a bunch of studies on it. It's worth reading if you are a VR developer, just so you have an understanding of where the market's going to play out. And I still think there's success here. It's just long term, it's grinding, and I would predict we see a retraction or a retreat of Facebook in the VR space in the next couple of years as they move to AR. We'll see. I don't know. But I mean, if they do, that's a big impact.